So I'm just going through after last night power washing and wiping up with the purple power on a rag. I'm trying to section it off here so I make sure I get everything, but this is the first wipe on this side. A lot of this stuff is kind of caked on here and it would take more time than it's worth, especially because you can't see it, but looks a hell of a lot better than stopped right here. There's the rest. This is going to be it for now before the final wipe down. I'm just going to go over it again with a cleaner rag. Got most of it though. About as good as it's going to get. A lot of this stuff is, you know, baked into the paint, so. But looks a lot better than it did. I bet you once we're done.
You know, I'm thoroughly impressed, Jake.
Thank you.
This thing looks a ton better.
It only took 2.5 hours.
The blue picks up really good on the camera too. Everything looks so good. I mean, for a 30-something-year-old car, that's pretty clean. But I mean, everything looks good. You got a new headlight put in there. Third one's a charm out of my stack. But it's pretty good. So now, what do we have to do?
Motor in the car. And hammering and cutting and things.
So we're gonna heat the frame rail up and manipulate it slightly so that we can fit the alternator. The reason you have to do this is because I guess the B series is bigger, obviously. So you have to knock this side of the frame rail in some, that way it has clearance for the pulley. It kind of sucks because they never look pretty unless you just cut it out and weld in a boxed in piece, but you got to do it. So that hurt. I think that ought to do it. We got to take the old shift linkage out from the D series. Get ready to put the B series one in. So, step one, remove this. This spring, man. That felt better. Hi, Jake.
Hey. How are you?
Remove it. How you doing down there? Woo! Woo! Got the heater core hose changed to lower. Nice new silicone hose. Alright, after a few accidents and test lifting with our new tilter here, found out that this is a horrible design and the cotter pin should never be used for that. So this is our temporary fix here, if it'll go all the way around. Will it go? Oh yeah, we're good.
Called it the cotter pin wrench.
Yeah, it's a cotter pin wrench right there. So now we're gonna take that and we're gonna shove that in there. So we'll catch up with you when we get stuck on the next part. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. what do you know? His car has a different aura right now. So after multiple incidents, one being this rear bracket here, the rear mount.
Why'd you do that?
Somebody put it on this side, which is where the D series one mounts. And then there's like another provision over here where it's got like a third bolt, but there's also one up here because they knew that people would want to put a B series in here. So we were like fighting with it and everything like that, and we had to end up moving it from this position over to this position. We were all into it over here, and it's actually very close. Just to give you a perspective of how big a B series is in this car. And then it's hard to tell back there, but the alternator barely has any room. That's why we had to do that bashing. You can still kind of see a little bit of light back in between there, the shadow of the alternator. So this still spins. He can run his alternator bracket all the way out. The hood does shut. You want to show him the hood? Mm-hmm. So the hood shuts, and there's not a major issue with it hitting anything. As you can see, there's no latch or anything, but his gap here is really good. And same over here. So it's not like a lot of times you put a GSR or a B20 in here, they like to hit the hood bad. But it's got a pretty, not a whole lot of room. There's really not. It's hard to tell from this angle. I can't get the camera up there high enough. But they like to rub 2 spots right here and then 2 small spots right here. So we're gonna probably end up having to cut that, which is not a big deal as long as you make it look nice. So yeah. How do you feel having a B16 in your car?
I'm beyond hype and beyond thankful for Honda Dad.
A few more parts and we'll be set.
Sweet.
All right.
I think I'm too tired to be excited right now.
Me too. We're all very excited about this. So the reason that Jake's taking the tension rods loose is because this is not gonna work. We barbarically cut this the other night to make room for the header, but the 4-into-1 is kind of huge. That's how much room you have to have. We don't have that much room, so we're just taking it off, and Jake's gonna spend a little more money. Right, Jake?
Jake spent a little money.
Jake spent, so that means it should be here soon. So we're just taking this off until we get everything mocked up and everything's gonna fit. And when that part comes in, we'll put that back on. So now that we got the factory tension rod bracket out of the way, we can now put the header on. So Jake's been cleaning the header up. It was real disgusting when we put it on. But it's actually a Vibrant Performance header, and we figured might as well clean it up so it'll at least look good in the car. And that does. Put my other valve cover on here for the time being because it's already notched to clear the hood. And we're getting his powder coated, so that will go on there temporarily. Now we're gonna put some oil in this thing and the valve cover gasket, and then route the harness, figure out the fuel lines, and see if this thing will start. Here at Scumbag Garage, Spicy Boy Speed Shop, we like to reuse gaskets. This came off of my GSR that's been out of my car for maybe 2 years now at this point, and all these seals. The good thing is this got ran for maybe 4 or 5 months because the motor was junk. So the gasket's new, it's still very limber, and this probably won't even get driven on the road because we're going to get his valve cover powder coated. So these will seal up enough for us to run the engine without making a mess everywhere. So we're going to put that on right now. Typically, you put RTV on the corners of the cam caps. Like I said, this is going on there temporarily. so longevity is not a concern. Just like that. Alright, so now we're inside the car. We gotta peel this back and get this plate off. And then once we get that off, we can swap the ECU out. So we got the kick plate off, and then the ECU. So if you look here, this is the complete factory ECU harness. Plugs into the back of the ECU. This hasn't been removed in probably 30 years. You got 3 plugs. Now, if you were doing this the OG way back in 2001, you would take these pins apart and add or swap wires around to make them correspond with your new ECU. And you would have to run an OBD0 ECU. So it would have had to come out of an Integra or a Japanese model, because the Integra is the only thing that came with a B series and VTEC in the States. So we've got this. We'll mark this as a good ECU and put it on the shelf. In here we have a full MONOTECH wiring harness. It's obviously the engine harness in its entirety. It plugs into the factory locations on the shock tower, so we'll set that out here. We also have this nifty little jumper that he provides, which makes life so much easier. So for Jake's swap, obviously it's a B16 out of 99 Civic Si. So I may or may not have found a P30, which came from like a Del Sol with a B16 in it. So this should operate his motor to the best of a stock computer's abilities, and we are going to be using MONOTECH's jumper harness. This goes from OBD0 to OBD1. So we're going to get that plugged in and mount everything up. This guy just plugs in here. So this ECU is smaller than the other one, so it doesn't quite line up with all the factory mounting locations. You can get 2 in it, but the wiring harness is very bunched up. So I think the best option is put this in here, and we'll probably just run it right here in these 2 tabs. Have to sort that out a little bit, but if you notice, we've got 2 extra plugs and these terminals. So this is for your check engine light. Basically, if you have a check engine light on the dash, you'll key on and you'll plug these 2 in. He actually has connectors here to where you can put spades in it, run it to a button or a switch, and that will flash the check engine light on your dash. I didn't just fall over. It's okay. There's no seat, so it's kind of like sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
Oops. So we will probably just leave these down here. If you got to check a code, just plug this in and it'll flash on the dash instead of OBD0 where it flashes at the ECU with the key on constantly. So that's the only difference there. These extra 2 plugs are actually on our engine harness, so we will have to feed that through the firewall down to here, plug them up, and get everything tidy. So now we're going to run the engine harness that we got from MONOTECH. Like I said, these will go into the car, and then these are going to go into the fuse box the factory plug off of the firewall and the other factory plug. And we've got a good length of harness here, and we'll just unravel it and see where it goes. I like to start by putting your furthest point out in the car, so you can kind of get the harness to lay out naturally. So you would start from the farthest plug, which would be our shock tower plug, which is in Jake's right hand. So that one is going to go all the way on the other side near the master cylinder. That connects the body harness over there with the engine harness. So we have that plugged in over there. It's tucked up underneath the master cylinder. It's pretty good and out of the way. Now the next plug, which is going to be our fuel injectors here. I like to run them underneath the intake manifold slightly. That way, one, you can get a little more length out of them. Two, it looks cleaner. So what I like to do is just feed them one by one underneath here. You've also got this sensor right here for the air intake sensor. It will go right here, clip it in, and the good thing about the MONOTECH wiring harness is it's kind of dummy proof. These injectors are obviously different colors for a different injector sequence, so this makes it a little easier. It just kind of goes in order. So longest to shortest, just like you would do plug wires, and that should get you close. If it doesn't, just check your wiring. The colors are factory color layout, so it should be pretty simple to track down any issues with this harness in the future if we have to. All those are in there. We can tidy this up later on after we know everything works. So this little guy branches off, and that goes to your idle air control valve. And then you've got your knock sensor or oil pressure right here. So we'll route those down a little further. That leaves us with your power wire right here. That goes on the lug for the alternator, obviously. Then you've got a plug down here that plugs into the side of the alternator.
I'm going to do the one thing I know how to do and put in my eBay distributor. I already got some oil from the hole that the old one came out of. Just lube up the O-ring and make sure your little teeth are lined up with the cam, and then stick it in there.
First try?
First try, yeah.
Ain't no way you got that first try.
Yeah, I did. I didn't even have to take it out and record it or anything.
So while Jake got the distributor put on, we went ahead and ran all the other wiring. We got the alternator charge wire ran into the fuse box here. We also have the chassis harness plugged up, map sensor, throttle position, the idle air control valve. We have a ground here to ground the chassis or the engine harness to the chassis harness. Fan switch. We are not going to plug the distributor in yet until we have a good oil pressure. So those will just go right here. But it's coming along good. Jake's putting the grounds on right now, and we should be good to crank here in a few minutes as long as everything goes smooth. Those other two plugs, we ran in through the firewall, plugged them in. Now our ECU should be able to just sit right here like this, and boom, that's pretty tidy. Have to tuck this out of the way, but we're gonna make sure everything's good and the ECU powers up and that we've got fuel pump. We'll crank it, make some oil pressure, and then see if it'll fire and run. Jake is putting the battery in right now. Everything that needs to be here to crank the engine is here. We don't have the distributor plugged up. We do have plugs in it, so we'll know if it has decent compression. No fuel leak. Just kidding. Fuel leak.
Nothing.
Nothing with a key?
Nope.
Okay. Let me just say, another one. All right, turn the key back on. Go ahead and crank it for about 30 seconds. Crank it some more. It's drank about a half a quart. Crank her one more time. You're good. Moment of truth. You want it?
Cross your fingers.
Go ahead and crank her. Let's fucking go! Go ahead and kill it. Holy shit. Holy shit. Alright, we're going to start it one more time. Give a little exhaust clip. Let the neighbors know that the B16 SWAP is running. Go ahead, Jake. Hell yeah, bud. Look at the floor. Oh my god. It's okay. It sharted. It did shart. It tooted. Boom! It runs. We'll probably have to take some time and clean everything up underneath the engine bay, and we've got a lot of work to go, just little tedious things. Yeah, and the entire suspension, axles, trans fluid, radiator, antifreeze, clutch lines, put the slave on it, put the master cylinder in it since we're converting from cable to hydro, which I'm very excited for. Don't even know what your new clutch feels like yet.
No, I don't.
Yep.
I think the motor runs. I don't care what the clutch feels like.
He's just like, yes, I want to drive it. But there's the motor in the car. A bunch of little stuff now.
It's a Honda. Think about that. I've had other cars. You can't just plug stuff up and just, stick the motor in the car and just, whoom. That doesn't happen with other cars. This is crazy.
It's pretty
crazy.
sick.
I'd say a lot of it has to do with it.
Yeah, the MONOTECH harness makes everything a lot easier. Just plug everything up. There's one check engine light, and it's because it's got an automatic ECU in it, and that's it. Everything works. Everything electrical works, except the key to start it. He's still got his push button.
That's custom.
That is custom. So we'll pick it back up when we can get the radiator and the front end and everything else installed and the little hoses and bits. So that's it for tonight. We're going inside.